Alright, I wanted to make this quick video here talking about works-based salvation. Now, I'm not answering the question if I believe in works-based salvation. I'm basically getting you to ask yourself this question. Because a couple days ago, I was watching a video from SmackJack77, and he brought up Brian Dellinger, who goes by the YouTube username Born Again Barbarian. He was saying that he preaches a works-based salvation. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, he preaches the gospel, doesn't he? And the first thought that came to my head is, doesn't he say Christians don't do this, Christians don't do that, where he says Christians don't cuss? It's like, oh yeah, he did say that. That is works-based, but he's subtly putting it in there. And what's interesting is I was like, I'm going to make a video about that, because I remember him saying things like that. Because in the video, he brings up about how he actually plays the clip from Brian Dillinger talking about, oh yeah, if you're saved, then this is what to expect. And then what do you know? A couple days later, Brian Dillinger puts up a video about what is works-based salvation. Maybe that's not the exact title, but something along those lines. And I decided to watch just a little bit of it there, just so I can hear him say it again. And not too long into it, he does talk about the changed life of a Christian, where he was saying, oh, there's people who are like, oh, they're saved, and they, at one moment he was saying, oh, they're saved, and even though they still have done something, they're still saved. But then he says a little bit later that, hey, why would you do these things? If you're born again, you wouldn't, kind of thing. And I stopped it there. I was going to finish it later. I might splice it into this video after I finish watching it. Maybe actually put a couple of the clips in, or at least timestamps to his video if you want to check it out, to hear him say it for himself. But when he says something like Christians don't cuss, well, that's basically saying what the Calvinists say. Like, if you're saved, well, then you would prove it by having the fruit. And if you cuss, well, then, oh, you don't truly believe. You're not truly born again, right? So the salvation is, again, dependent on your works. So, pardon me, because I'm going to say a couple words people don't like. I don't think they're bad words, but you might not like them. But I'm going to say them real quick. Sometimes in a video, I may say ass, or I may say shit, right? I don't see these as bad words. I see them as a different way to say butt, or a different way to say poop, right? I do try not to say them because for some reason people are bothered by them, namely Christians, and they think you're not Christian because you said those words. And it's like, oh, okay, so I'm not saved by Jesus and what he did. I'm saved by whether or not I say these two words or not. So now I have to not say those words to prove that I'm saved. So you see how it's subtly bringing works into it. And a lot of Christians who claim to believe the gospel do this in a lot of ways, right? They'll act as though, yeah, God forgives sin, and, they'll, like adultery and fornication and stuff, lying and stealing. But then somebody's a homosexual, and they're like, you're going to hell, you need to repent of that. And it's like, but they can't repent of being homosexual. They can repent of doing homosexual things, right? They can live like a celibate life, but they can't change being attracted to the same sex, to the opposite sex. You can't change your desires, right? Just like you can't not desire women. Whether you want to make yourself gay or you want to be celibate, you can't just take away your desire for the opposite sex. You can't just stop desiring them. You can control the desire, but they act as though they gotta no longer be gay or homosexual, lesbian, in order to be saved. So it's based on their works and their ability to actually change their nature and their desires. Right? A lot of Christians seem to do that. It's like, no, that's not how you're saved. You're saved in your sin and in your sinful desires with your impure heart. In spite of those things. And even though once you're saved, it's your soul that is saved, the flesh still has that impure heart where, it does a lot of the things selfishly, not out of a love for God and love for a fellow man, but out of a love for itself. So, you still got to deal with that impure heart, and you get your impure nature, where if you desire the same sex, you still desire the same sex. You can't just change that, right? I mean, these Christians understand that, hey, this guy was a player, right? He was a misogynist and just used women. But then he got saved. They understand, well, yeah, he's still going to desire to do those things. They don't expect his nature to just go, boom, he no longer desires that. They do expect him to control it, right, to the best of his ability and work with God to overcome it. But they don't expect him to no longer be a womanizer, at least not like that, right? Where he would still fall into that temptation. They don't expect something like that to change, right? Where you just stop it. You stop being that. But when they're a homosexual, they're like, whoa, you need to stop being a homosexual. Boom, like that. No longer desire the same sex. Or else you're not Christian. You haven't been born again, right? So you see how they subtly put works in different ways. And they're very inconsistent. Like, oh yeah, I'm saved even though I have these sinful desires, whether I act on them or not. But this other person's desires are different, and I don't like them. So, no, they're not saved even though they have those different desires that they're dealing with. But me, I'm saved even though I'm dealing with these desires that I don't always win when I'm trying to control them. It's like, well, what's the difference? Because that sin you find to be what, disgusting, disturbing, not socially acceptable, or are you worried that people are going to think you're homosexual because you accept them? Do you care? That's the issue. You're caring too much what people think and not what God thinks. But yeah, we see how that works out there, right? So, do you believe in a works-based salvation? I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Take care.